Scan here. You're the Thrifty Apprentice. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Today's video, we are going to do things a little bit different. We're going to kind of cut back and strip back out of the editing and do a good old-fashioned, straightforward comparison of the White Knight watercolor paints. Now, as we know, White Knights is a professional watercolor brand that is produced by, and I'm going to butcher this, but I'm going to give it a try, Noviskia Palitra, St. Petersburg. And I have a 12 full pan set that I acquired and reviewed back in 2019. I will be sure to link that video if you would like to check out that individual review. And I'm going to be comparing it to this 12 tube 10 milliliter set that I acquired this year as a gift. And I was really curious to see if the quality of the paint was going to carry across the pans to the tubes. And I have to say, I was not disappointed. I did find that from my experience and just based on the quality, I feel like the paints, both sets, still give exactly the same thing. We're going to take a look really quickly at some swatch sheets here, and then we're going to actually kind of paint some out and do a comparison. Let's look at the swatch sheet. Let's do some comparing of colors and some comparing of pigment numbers so we can look at some things that have changed and some things that are still the same. So in the full pan set, we were given a cad lemon and a cad yellow. Both of them are made from PY35 and they're both single pigment colors. Both of them were pretty transparent. Well, let's just say all colors across the range are pretty transparent. You have some that are semi-opaque, but for the most part, all the colors in both sets were transparent. They were mostly single pigment, and that's very important to remember. So again, you were given a cad lemon and a cad yellow in your pans, and the yellows in your tubes are going to be a cad yellow and a cad orange. So there was a change to the more sun-leaning yellow, your yellow that's going to give you more goldish tones. And I did find that they both seem to mix pretty much the same mixtures. You're going to get a little bit more color depth, a little bit more warmth from the colors that are mixed with the cad yellow versus the cad orange versus the cad yellow, but still both colors very useful single pigments. Now, I wasn't very familiar with the light fastness of PO20, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Moving on, for your reds in your pans, you had cad red and you had carmine. Your cad red is your PR108 and your carmine is your PR19. I'm sorry, cad red PR108 and carmine PR19. In your tubes, you're going to be given a quinacridone red, which is PR19, and a cad red light, which is a PR101. So the cad red is going to carry across both sets, and your magenta leaning red is a little different as far as tonal value and name, but they are made from the same pigment, just more than likely milled different ways. Next up are your blues. In your pans, you're getting ultramarine blue and phthalo blue. In your tubes, you're going to get ultramarine blue, blue lake, and cobalt blue. However, although you're getting 3 blues in the tubes, I actually found the blues in the pans to be more useful and universal for mixing because it's a phthalo blue and because it's an ultramarine. Now, it's not that the ultramarine didn't mix well in the tubes, because it did, but I just found I made richer colors, or I was able to get richer colors from the PB15 making up the phthalo blue in the pans than I was able to get from the PB1 making up the blue lake in the tube set. Cobalt blue had its uses, of course, because it can be used interchangeably with the phthalo, I feel. All right. Next up were your greens. In the pans, you're going to get emerald green, which is PG7, which is just, and then you're going to get green, which is PG8. So you have PG7 and PG8 versus PG8 green, so it carried over to the tubes. And in the tubes, you have another change here going to a turquoise blue, which is a 2 pigment color one of the very few in the set. There's only 2 out of all 12. So you're gonna get 10 single pigments here. And that phthalo blue is a that turquoise blue is a PB15:3 and a PG7. So it's a mix of the phthalos. Pretty cool. Pretty cool set. Pretty cool set. Now you have a violet in the tubes, which you do not have in the pans, but you're going to have more browns in the pans than you do in the tubes. So your earth tones in the tubes are going to be your yellow ochre, which is a dual pigment color, PY43 and PY158. And you're going to have a burnt umber, which is a single pigment, PBR7. Hold that thought. Switch over to the pans. You're going to have a burnt umber, PBR7. Same pigment carries over. But you're going to have a umber here, which is not in the tubes, which is a 3 pigment color, which is PBR7, PBK7, and PY43. The formulation of the yellow ochre did change a bit. The yellow ochre in the pans is a PY43, PY1 mixture, and the yellow ochre in the tubes is a PY43, PY154 mixture. And I did find that the one in the tubes seemed to be a little bit more opaque and a little bit richer in color, a little bit more saturated. So there was that difference. As far as the tubes go, I don't remember experiencing too much paint binder separation that I can recall. Overall, pretty enjoyable experience with them. I do hold them definitely in comparison to the things that I felt about the pan set. I would say I like them both very, very much. And I've always been kind of impressed with the fact that you can get these paints, all of them being so, being single pigment, being so rich in color, beautiful, and you can get them so affordably. White Knight happens to be, in my opinion, a really good brand, despite anything, I'm speaking specifically about paints when I talk, yeah. So what I want to do is do a little swatch off here with you guys, where we are going to do color for color what's meant to be. So we're going to do, I've already put down a black line here so we can kind of look at the opacity. And we'll do the half pans up top, and we'll do the tubes on the bottom. Now the tubes are in a stay wet palette, so honestly they are still in a very semi-wet form, which I think is a fair push off against the pans, which actually stay semi-moist themselves. So that's pretty cool. All right. I'm going to be using a new brush. This is a 3/8 Dagger Striper by Artegra. Yeah, something funny. You know how I am with pronouncing stuff. You see how I sit there and try that whole time? I'm gonna figure it out. I am. Okay, so let's start with let's start with the yellows. This was here. I'm not pre-wetting that. I'm just gonna drop some water on it, kind of wiggle my brush around a little bit, and then go straight in for the keel here and get us a nice swatch. Have to be careful because we are going to be, all right, and let's go for the yellow that's intended to be the cooler here. And in this case, they removed the lemon yellow and instead gave a cad yellow. Probably would have helped if I had there we go. There's that color. Beautiful. All right, so next up, we're gonna have cad yellow in this one, which ironically enough, it's the same formulation. So you're not gonna have a lemon leaning yellow in the tubes, right? Instead, you're gonna have a golden yellow and you're gonna have an orange. Let's just kind of one of the main differences between the sets. So if that matters to you, it's something to take note of. Although I'll be very honest, I didn't really make a big deal out of it. It mixed beautiful colors anyway. For your reds, you are going to have, let's see here. We're going to get some of this cad red light out, and it should be the same on both. I just love these colors. They're very pretty. And here we're going to have cad red again. I just have to give these a little water, work with them a little bit. Beautiful color. And I don't find one to be, I don't know, maybe the pans are just a tad bit stronger. Especially if you paint from them from a dried down or a semi-dried down state. But they're pretty close there. Now here's another difference. In the half pan, you got carmine, and here you have quinacridone. But as you can see, they're calling it quinacridone red, but that's very much that carmine pigment. So the blues, here you're gonna have ultramarine, beautiful blue. Love the granulation in the ultramarine, love it. Let's see, here we have ultramarine. Again, another beautiful color. As you can see, there is no difference. It really comes down to a few minute differences between the two sets as to which one you decide to go with. They're in pretty much the same price range. The $39, $35, $36, some of them are $39. And the reason they're different like that is because there are a couple of different 12 full pan curated sets. So here you're going, this one has, that one had phthalo blue. This is going to be Blue Lake. So this is more of your cyan leaning blue. And then there was, what was this one called? There was cobalt blue. I'm trying to get it out. This is cobalt blue. And that one does seem just a tad bit harder to re-wet than the rest as it dries down. Probably want to activate them, spray them to activate them. Or maybe that's just not the best color, because I was not able to get a lot of color out of that one. That might not be the best color for drying down, and that's the first issue I've noticed. Now, it hadn't dried this much, but it has now because I did leave the top off the palette. And again, that's the first one that is definitely weaker in re-wetting. So that's something to take note to, I think. Next up here, we're going to have a violet, which is not in the other set. Now, I do think it re-wets just fine. Beautiful color. In the pans, we are going to have a umber that is not in the tubes. And this is going to be one of your more opaque colors, but more semi-opaque because it has this transparent nature to it. Beautiful color. Next up, we have a burnt umber, which does carry over between both sets. Yes, I definitely think the pans are a little bit better on the whole re-wetting end. I didn't do yellow ochre, did I? Get yellow ochre down here. And I do feel like the yellow ochre from the tube set, if I'm not mistaken, I like a little bit more. The one from the pans remind me more of a sort of a Rossiana color. Not quite the same hue, but just the transparency of it. I'm definitely used to yellow ochre being a little bit more opaque like this one. So there are a few minor differences between the sets that you may want to consider. Did I forget any of them? There is a neutral black. I don't think I did any of the greens either, did I? Okay, so there's a neutral black here in the pans. So that goes towards the top one. There is, did I forget one? I forgot the, what is this? Burnt umber from the tubes. Again, really rich in color. So, you know, it's not bad. It's not bad. Here is your green. Beautiful color, beautiful color. And this is the emerald green, which of course, you can automatically look at that and tell what pigment it's made up of. Okay. And then you only get one green in the tubes, and that is the same green you get here. Now, I do say again, I think, oh, beautiful. Well, I was about to say you get more color from the pan, but nah, the tubes are just as pigmented. So there you have it. There is sort of a little comparison between the two. I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. Again, you're going to pay about the same price for the tubes as you will the pans. I personally lean more so towards the pans simply because I feel like I like the color choices a little bit more. I feel like maybe they perform a little bit better, maybe a little bit more color payoff in certain colors from their dried down state because they were formulated to be that way, versus the tubes, which I have let dry down and have remained kind of semi-moist, I'm sorry. So yeah, I lean a little bit more so towards the pans, but again, I do not think you could go wrong with either set. So I am going to throw up some paintings on the screen from the pan set so that you can take a look at some of the things that I did get a chance to do with them. It was back in 2019, so I did do some digging, but I could not really find the paintings. I'm sure they're here somewhere, but since I couldn't put my hands on them, I decided I would just run them across the screen. As far as the tubes are concerned, because they were open recently, I do have the paintings here that were done with those. Now, in the initial video where I did unbox them, which happens to be the review video for this palette, which I will link, there was the mushroom botanical or semi-botanical painting done. I had a lot of fun with this one. I feel like the paints handled really well. Between both sets, you're going to get some really nice properties as far as layering and glazing is concerned. They lift really well, other than those colors that may have some staining qualities, some natural staining qualities to the pigments. So I did find that to be universal across both sets. So there you have that. I also painted here recently this watercolor painting with the tube set, in which I was practicing on my florals. Can you guys hear the thunder in the background? It's getting ready to storm here. And again, another great painting experience with them. I really love the way that they glaze. I really love the way that they glaze. And then finally, recently, there was a video that came out in which I did a DIY brush holder, in which I introduced my use of a watercolor ground for the first time, which I tried on a coffee mug. And drawing inspiration from Paint Crush's brushes and the color scheme, I created this sort of DIY brush holder where I used watercolor ground to turn the texture of this coffee mug into something I could watercolor on using the White Knight tube paints. And this was the results. I was really pleased with it. I think it's really cool. I want to be careful handling it a lot. Now, I did seal it, which I showed you in that video, what I sealed it with. I may even go and spray another coat of varnish on it just to make sure. And I've even thought about possibly putting Mod Podge on it to seal it as well, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have to go that far. So those were the things that I created with the White Knight tube paints. So I did get pretty decent experience with both sets, and I will reiterate, I do not think you would be going wrong with either set. It really comes down to the color choices that you want. And there's going to be many sets out there at this particular point from this company to choose from. You just need to kind of go through them. I would suggest looking at the pigments that's listed in the sets and make a decision on which one may be best for you if you decide you're going to add these to your art supply arsenal. Well, there you have it, guys. It was a real straightforward, to the point video. Hopefully you picked up on some information or saw some things that you're going to find helpful. If you did, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Go ahead and share the video, but sharing is caring. Jump in the comment section. Let me know how you feel. What did you think about the information presented? Was it something new to you? Did you already know these things? Share your thoughts. Have you used these paints, my friends? Like, tell me, what was your experience with them? And I would definitely recommend them. You know, whether you decide to go with the pans or whether you decide to go with the tubes, just make the choices best for you, and I do not think you would be disappointed. You can check the video description for all of the relevant links. And remember, as I tell you at the end of every single video, just keep creating.